All right, welcome back to another episode of the Bears Film Room podcast. My name is Dave. I cover the Bears for SM. Like always, joined by my good friend, Chicago Bears content creator Ficky, who's just got back from a tropical vacation. Where did you go? DR,
the
right?
DR, yeah, Dominican, yeah.
That's
Great time.
Thought, man. Yeah, it looked beautiful for the limited videos you had. I know you said you were not on your phone, which is great.
Yeah, but it was a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna have a great time today. We have a really, really fun episode. We have special guest, good friend, DaBearsBlog, Jeff. He's gonna be on with us. We're gonna talk OTAs a little bit. We're also gonna go ahead and take a look at his new article series that he does for Sports Mockery. I think is on volume 6 now. If I'm not mistaken, I might be ahead. It might be 5. But it's what does the league think of the Chicago Bears? And then he goes through and does each volume has a different section. So one had DJ Moore, the other had the running backs, where they focus and they take basically he asked about, I think, 3 or 4 people around the league, what they honestly think of that position group. Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams. Anyways, the articles have been out for a couple weeks now, and I think he's working on, like I said, volume 6 as well. And it's been really, really fun to read. So we're going to kind of pick his brain. We're going to talk about the stadium and any other nuggets he might have. But first off the rip, we're going to talk about Bears OTAs. Today was the first one open to the public, and I think it was relatively good. Everything that you can't get too much out of OTAs, right? Organized team activities. It's about all you can do. But it was fun to see, the guys out there. There's some notable people missing as well. But before we hop into a fic, any key takeaways from today, whether it be press conferences, what you saw, whether it's Caleb Williams or anything along those lines, just regards to Chicago Bears OTAs.
Well, I think there's obviously, we got to talk about the hot topic, right? The article that came out.
Oh, yeah.
About Caleb Williams, right? And Carl Williams.
Which was addressed today.
But you noticed who wasn't out there? Obviously, Caleb Williams. I understand why they didn't put him out there, because those questions were going to get asked. And my take on it is, if that's how he felt before, that's what he felt. That's fair. That is all of those reasons to feel like that. If I'm a high prospect of a quarterback, that's not an exciting place to go. I don't care. Like, you're not going to lie to yourself. I do love that. Obviously, I mean, let's be real. You really didn't have a choice. Like, you're going to get that. You're going to want that rookie contract, number 1 overall contract. So you're going to sign with whatever team. That's why it's only been done like twice, I think, in NFL history. One was Eli back in the day, where he got drafted by the Chargers and then was like, I do not want to be here, and then basically forced to trade in New York. But he's going to go there because the money nowadays is there. And so you're not going to go to the UFL, like that said. But to wrap that all up, I think it was fair for him and his father to think that way. They are very business-minded people. And if you're looking long-term for business and marketability, you go to Chicago and it doesn't turn out well, your market drops immediately. If you hit, you're in one of the best markets in the U.S., it could go up. But the likelihood for you to hit, if you look at historical evidence, it's not great. We've had 30 starting quarterbacks since like 2001 or something like that. And the only team in the NFL that's had more than us is the Cleveland Browns. So that's not good company to be in. So I was not upset about any of that stuff. Everything they said, if I was in his shoes, I would feel the exact same way. You would rather go play Kevin O'Connell, the quarterback whisperer. You saw what he did with Sam Darnold. Any quarterback he gets typically thrives under him. So, of course, he's going to want to go to a team with a coaching staff that is highly regarded. And then the final piece, and I'll let your thoughts on this, Dave. The final thing is that it actually played out exactly how, what they were afraid of. Head coach gets fired. Offensive coordinator gets fired. You have 3 offensive coordinators during the season, right? Just a shit show. You lose 4, 5, 6 games in crazy fashion. Obviously, we all know about the Hail Mary, which kind of started it all, or was the tip of the iceberg. But everything they were worried about happened. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not like looking at Caleb and be like, oh my God, how could he feel that way?
I saw a tweet that said, like, I wish Caleb Williams would have addressed it today at OTAs. Obviously he was not made available for the media, which I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, for me, when I saw it, I was like, is this really still a story? Like I've moved on. I think a lot of fans have moved on. And you, like you said, I think even I would agree with some of the stuff that, him and his dad said about the Chicago Bears last year. However, like I said, I've moved on, but I love one of my favorite things that we'll get to before we bring Jeff in here soon was that Ben Johnson, he unprompted addressed it right away. Now, of course, I think he talked a little bit about it on Colin Cowherd, the show that he has. But today he addressed it to the Chicago media, which can be ruthless, but they would even get a chance to ask the question. He just kind of talked about it straight on. Do we want to go ahead? I want to play that clip if you don't mind, if you want to get that set up for us, Fick.
I got you.
And the reason why is I just felt like it was really, really cool to see the type of leader, both in OTAs, of course, like we've heard that he, obviously practiced, or he was very, very, not ruthless, but he was very, very direct today at practice, right? He was getting on to players such as Cole Kmet, just a bunch of things that he did not like, I guess, per se. And it wasn't always pretty too, as far as what OTAs looked like, but it is what it is in regards to, that's where we're at right now with what we're middle of May, almost June, I guess. So we're getting there, but I just loved how direct he was. So I'm going to go and play this clip from Ben Johnson, and then we'll just go ahead and share a couple more thoughts before we bring Jeff on here. Let's see.
Yeah, he was fiery. I think there was a question.
That's the word.
Adam Hogue asked, like, you looked a little agitated today, right? He's like, agitated? Oh, no, this is just me normal. So, but that's what we heard about him. Like, he's a very intense guy, and I'm happy for that. So,
yeah.
It's come to my attention that the quarterback's been out in the media over the last week. And just to get out in front of that a little bit, I just wanted to say I wasn't here last year, and so I can't speak too much in terms of what it was like before he got here and when he got here last year. But from my 4 months on the job, he's been outstanding to work with, and we just are focusing on getting a little better every day.
Yeah, I love that answer. I think the fact that he just, like I said, unprompted, went ahead and addressed the situation very, very quickly. I think I guess before we move on, I have another quote, which I think you tweeted out as well, Fick, about Caleb's father saying this is Chicago's where quarterbacks go to die. And he's not the first person that said it. I think Bears fans have said it themselves. But regarding this, you just love to see it from a head coach. But from him being, fired up today at OTAs, and then, of course, his press conference afterwards, I love what I've seen from Ben Johnson over the last 4 months. But your thoughts, is this what you thought when Ben Johnson was coming here? Do you appreciate the directness? It's just kind of like polar opposite of like Flus, in my opinion, where he would kind of dance around or word salad in regards to if he had to address this story regarding his quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of gotten now enough data points on Ben Johnson and how he approaches things, right? And he is, like you said, he's direct. Now, is he going to be direct about everything? Probably not. But where he feels like he can get ahead of it, he does. And he's not afraid to answer the questions, right? There's going to be times he's going to word salad. He's going to dance around questions when, we lose a game and, he may not have the answers right then and there. That's just normal. That's coach speak. But for what he can talk about and control the narrative right now, he's getting ahead of it and he's doing a good job. And like we said, he didn't say anything that's profound there. He wasn't here. That was a whole year ago. People can change, right? Even if Caleb on day one's like, I do not want to be here, it's been 370, 80 days. I'm sure he doesn't feel that way now. Like, a lot can change in a year. And we see how we talk about fiery from Ben Johnson. We see how Caleb is fiery for this team. So if Caleb didn't want to be there, he needs to go into acting, because he sure does sell it like he wants to be a part of this team, right? So I think it's just, the media. Obviously, it came out of nowhere, right? And I don't blame the reporter, Seth Wishersham or something from ESPN, I believe. He has a book coming out, so he's promoting it. I don't blame him for all of that. But, I mean, none of this is surprising. We saw Carl Williams, who, we both follow him on Twitter, and I think he follows us as well. Shout out to his dad. Mm-hmm. But he tweets some, subtle stuff. Like, he was, especially earlier in the season when you could tell it was like coaching malpractice. he would have some tweets where if you read between the lines, you're like, okay, yeah. you don't mess with Flus. So I mean,
or he'd retweet something that matched how he was feeling. That was like his go-to.
Correct. He retweeted tons of stuff because he tweeted at first, and then but
he understood like if you tweet it, it will be linked to you. Correct. It will be talked about across all of Chicago media. If you retweet it might be a blog post. It might be just a Twitter firestorm, but it isn't going to hit. It typically does not hit, the radio waves or the shows.
Right.
Or he can just unretweet it. Right. So
that's true. But hey, look, he does it for the negative stuff of the Bears. He does it for the positive stuff. It's just like, he's just he's a normal person on Twitter. So I don't blame him for that. But to say all that is just that Carl is just like us.
Yeah.
All the frustrations we had about this team, this coaching staff, this organization, and its consistent ways of losing was aggravating. And I couldn't imagine as a dad, you already are feeling that from a fan perspective, but now the implications are affecting your son, right? Your son is the face of the franchise right now, whether he likes it or not. Caleb Williams is the face of the franchise. So everything that happens Chicago Bears goes filtered through and goes straight to Caleb Williams, right? So as a dad, I would be upset too. I'd be like, get these coaches out, because that's what we were saying. We literally had a Flus meter that was literally like, get this guy, to the trash can for like more than half of the season. So yeah. Anyways, to say, I feel like it's just kind of blown up, right? Because it came out of nowhere, but none of it is like, wow, how could they ever think such a thing about this organization that's known for winning so much and for the franchise quarterbacks we've had back to back to back to back. We haven't. Mm-hmm. So, but
no. I agree. I think he has a right. Like I said, I have no problem with the article. I've moved on for sure, and I think a lot of people have as well. So I want to go ahead and address a few things before we bring Jeff on here. Some injuries. Luther Burden did not participate in OTAs. It likely stems from a diving catch that he had at rookie minicamp a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Ben Johnson said, he wasn't there today. We're working through a little soft tissue deal with him right now, and remains to be seen when we'll get him back. I'm not worried. However, Kevin White, I get it. Bears fans, I get it. However, I think this one is fine. But including Luther Burden not being there, I wanted to kind of go over a list of the other players that did not attend. Kyler Gordon was not there. Za Frazier, safety Elijah Hicks, cornerback Terrell Smith, running back Ian Willer, linebacker Amen Abba. Oh, I always mess this one. Adebingo. Not sure, but he was not there. Offensive tackle Braxton Jones, Ryan Bates, tight end Colston Loveland was not there. It looks like he was at the rookie premiere, of course. And then defensive tackle Zach Pickens and Andrew Billings as well. So other than that, attendance was pretty good. So
yeah, I mean.
Oh, and then the last thing before we bring Jeff on, that's on my screen. I forgot to play it. Juan Briscoe.
Oh, that's what we love. That's what I love.
Yes.
I'm glad he's got the padded on. That man needs to have 8 of them. I don't care. Like if his helmet looks like a big head, I don't care, because that man cannot have another concussion. Please.
Keep him protected.
Yes, please. So I'm excited to see he is fully padded up, head to toe. So that is good to see.
We'll talk more about Brisker. We do have, if you want to.
Oh, you muted, Dave.
Oh, I muted myself. Oh, yeah, let's change the overlays. We're going to go ahead and bring in Jeff from DaBearsBlog onto the show. Jeff, welcome. Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. And I think this is your podcast debut. Is this correct?
For you guys.
I couldn't believe it.
Let me tell you something. How can we take these OTAs seriously if Adebingo wasn't there? I mean, we don't even know what the fucking guy's name. Adebingo wasn't there. How can we take this seriously? Why is that not Wickersham's book? Where the hell is Adebingo?
We need a story on that.
Jeff right now having his 3rd sausage of the night. Find Adebingo and get him into OTAs where he belongs.
Oh, that's funny. I think that's your next article, Jeff. That's what you got. Investigative journalism at its best. But
a 5-part series called "Searching for Adebingo."
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, for those who don't know, which I think there's probably not a lot of people as far as Bears Twitter, just Bears Kingdom, as far as knowing who Jeff DaBearsBlog is. But Jeff, thank you for hopping on. It's been a couple weeks in the works here, so we appreciate it. I want to just open up the floor first 2 minutes. Just tell us about, because there might be some people who do not know who you are, what you do, and how long you've done it for. So do you just want to mind sharing that? And then, of course, what the transition has been like coming over to SM and what that's been like and why you made that move.
So 20 years ago now, I started the Bears blog because a buddy of mine was in the tech world and was tired of hearing me bitch and moan about the Bears and set up a blog. And the thing, oddly enough, didn't look much different in 2005 than it looked in 2025. We deliberately just never changed it. We just made it a scroll. And for 20 years, watching everybody come into this thing and leave this thing, we just kept going and produced a lot of great content. And I'm, not to give too much backstory, but I'm currently getting my PhD from Rutgers University. And I got to a point in that process where I said, okay, I just don't think I can do this day to day anymore. I tried to hire someone last year, didn't work out. So what I started fishing around for was, where could there be a partnership? Where could there be some place to bring the stuff I do without having to run it day to day? And I met Chris Barans at Sports Mockery. We had a very, very boozy lunch in Chicago a couple months ago. And I just, I like the idea that Sports Mockery is doing one thing and I could bring something different and add something to that conversation. What I've always done is I write. I'm not, the only time I've ever got into the scoop business was to spite Dan Wiederer. People don't know about this. Dan Wiederer went on my friend Mark Silverman's show and badmouthed me to a large audience. And I decided to call my friends inside Hell's Hall and say, can I have scoops for one off season? I've never asked before. I need to spite this prick Dan Wiederer. And they obliged me. And so every time I would leak what was happening in the interviews, I would also hashtag Dan Wiederer. It was pure spite. I didn't even enjoy it. It's too nerve-wracking. But I did it to spite Dan. My following grew in exponentially then. People love that shit. And so when I finally made a decision to sort of let's get rid of the Bears blog as a website, but try to keep the identity of the Bears blog intact. And Chris was into that idea for Sports Mockery. And I'm hoping that we can continue to grow the coverage as we go along. And it's great that you guys are already doing pods. You already have all the SEO shit figured out. I mean, that seems to be his specialty. So all I've got to do is produce content. That's my dream world. So that I can do. And so it's been a really good transition. The work I think has been okay, and people seem to be enjoying it. And if we're getting traffic at this time of the year, I never did that at the Bears blog. This is always that dead period where once the draft comes, people check out till mid-July, late July. We seem to be doing okay. So far, so good.
Love to hear it.
No, for sure. Vic, I'll let you go here. I have a multitude of questions.
Well, I was going to say he mentioned the scoop part, and I remember particularly that offseason where
it's iconic.
Where you were the scoop guy. Like, I remember the ascension of the confidence of the mass, following you.
Some people know. My friends in the media know. I was very close to the Phillips family, and I knew Ted very well, and know his family very well. And so I had never, ever asked them to do anything of the sort. But I got real pissed off that day when Dan decided to do this for no reason. Dan did this. I mean, I know why Dan gets pissed off with the internet folks. There's a lot of them. But for no reason, he did this. And I said, I was the first. I actually did it on the Irish Bears show. I said, Pace and Nagy are out. I knew that in late November. And then when they fired one of them first. They fired Nagy first, and they waited to leak the Pace. And I'm pacing my apartment during that process going, well, this is awful. This is just an awful feeling. And then I was literally in the rooms for the interviews where that got to a point where not literally in the rooms, but figuratively in the rooms where I was exactly what happened in each interview. And that really pissed off some people at the Tribune, who I tend to piss off normally anyway. And have for 20 years since David Hall was there. So that was a crazy offseason. But again, that offseason, I went from 18,000 Twitter followers to 40,000. It was what I learned about
crazy.
That. If you want to be in the game like that, that's what you have to be doing. It's why the Schefters, the Rappaports, and the Jordan Schultzes of the world now are just taking over NFL media. It's because all people really want is just the fucking, and it's what's crazy is they want to know things 9 minutes before they're going to become known.
Well, think about Jeff, think about today, even for basketball, right? Like Shams tweeted the MVP winner at like 10 a.m. and it's supposed to get announced live more than 12 hours later. So
tonight, right?
The first I saw was that Giannis responded. It was like, "Is this real?" I'm like, "Well, what is going on? Like, what?"
Yeah.
I mean, but this is one of those draft things too. This used to started around the draft when guys used to, when they first started leaking draft picks. Really started when they went to prime time. And I remember that process being like, oh man, this is a different game now. Like this is a different, and I've never been a professional at this. And I've always like sort of bragged about that. Like, even though I've written, God, probably 40,000 columns about the Bears in 20 years, the idea of being your living, having to be the first one to know when a guy signs a contract, it just seems so hollow and vapid to me as an existence. So what I've loved about what I've been able to do over the years is if I want to write fucking haikus for a week, I'm going to write haikus for a week. And if you don't want to read them, you don't have to. And it's always been what's excited me about having my own space. And the one thing I said to Chris when we were having our boozy lunch was, man, there's going to be times when I'm going to write things that are going to make no sense to some people. I mean, my favorite things on Twitter in the last year, I started writing these responses to games on Monday that were short plays. And almost every time I would write these short plays, the first comment would be, "What is this?" And those comments made me so happy because, like, yes, it's because you haven't seen someone do something like this, right? You're so used to, and this is the other thing that's happened. Again, 2005, there was Windy City Gridiron and there was me. There was nobody else on the internet. And now there are, 50 podcasts, 60 podcasts, a bunch of video. Everyone can do this shit now. So it's about finding your way in this process to make yourself unique. And Adam Johns has had me talk to his journalism class at Columbia in Chicago a bunch of times. And they're always asking me like, well, how do I get started in this? I'm like, if you're getting started in this now, good on you, because you are entering a marketplace that I didn't have to deal with in 2005. I don't know how you separate yourself, but I've always argued the same thing. Just do the best work you can. And I think if you do that, you will find some kind of audience. I don't know if you're going to make a living. I don't know. You're certainly not going to get rich. But you will find an audience and you will be fulfilled by it if you go with that approach.
Yeah,
I got very preachy there. I didn't mean that.
No, you're good. You're good.
I think that's one of our favorite things to say is there's so many podcasts, so many shows that if you're watching or whatever, we just appreciate it, because there's just a demand. There's so much content being pumped out on a daily basis. So no, I've always appreciated your work. That off season, I think, is when I really was like, who is DBB? Like it was so fun to follow. And I appreciated it. So Ficky, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and ask one of my favorite questions.
Yeah.
What was that, Jeff?
People got so mad that offseason. People were so mad. It was, I really enjoying it. Like it was, but they were so mad.
It was fun to follow.
Sure.
I think you're due for another one of those off season. Hopefully not yet though, because I kind of like the calmness of the Bears so far. I know it's been obviously ESPN. That story was, wild and weird timing. But kind of speaking of Caleb Williams, Jeff, your first article that you did was for what does the league think of the 2025 Bears? And I think you're on volume, is it 6 now?
5 or 6, yeah.
5 or 6. You're working on that one. But the first one was volume 1. And you talked about, you got to speak with various former personnel, various media roles, just about either Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, of course, Caleb Williams, and then ownership. When you talked about the quarterback, you got what your answer you got back was he's got no excuses now. The guy can do absolutely everything. But when we scouted their offense last year, no shit, we laughed out loud sometimes. None of it made sense. Ben is going to put the right people in the right places on almost every snap. Caleb just has to process and execute. And if he does, he's going to have a huge year, but I have some doubts. So my question for you is where is your optimism with Caleb, and what concerns also do you have, whether it's your own personal or what you've heard, whether it's inside Hallis or just around the league?
So I printed one of those comments, but what was kind of surprising was all 4 of them had the same, almost a variation on the same comment, which was everybody who looked at the tape of the Bears last year did not know what they were looking at. And one of my buddies was a very good area scout for an NFC team, was texting me in October saying, what is going on? And he's actually a Bears fan and a scout for a different team. And he just kept asking me, what is going on? And I just kept saying, don't know. I said, all the things that we spent an entire summer talking about, how they would utilize DeAndre Swift in the passing game, where Cole Kmet would fit in, how they would just use these wide receivers all over the field and be matchup nightmares. None of it was taking place. And so that was my reservations, and I don't have a lot on Caleb. I actually think Caleb's rookie year is way more impressive than people give him credit for. But my reservations is only I haven't seen it, right? What I saw last year was a very good athlete, all the talent you want at quarterback, but I don't know how he operates in a structure because I don't think there was one last year. And if you're asking me, how did he not have 10 supremely easy, short, shallow crosses last year to a wide receiving core that seemed literally built for the shallow cross? I mean, two guys who should run it in their sleep on that roster. So we don't know. And what Ben's offense is going to do is Ben's going to get this ball into people's hands quickly. And that's what the Luther Burden pick is to me. Like, he sees what he wants this offense to look like. So all we've got to see now from Caleb is now you're going to have a real offense and you're going to be coached hard. So now you're going to see, how does this kid react to being put in a scenario where there is a real structure? You are going to be expected to play within that structure. And if you don't play within that structure, your life's not going to be very easy in that building week to week. I'd like to see how he does, how he responds. Everything I've heard about him personally is that he's an amazing dude, right? Nobody in that building has a bad word to say about him. And everybody thinks this is about to be the marriage we've been waiting for in Chicago for a long time. So we'll see. But I would say the reservations I have, I just want to see it. The reservations the guys in the league have are the mess that they were looking at last year on tape. They don't know how to reconcile it. Like, they don't know how to say, that was Caleb's fault, this isn't Caleb's fault, they don't know. Because when you're looking at tape and your scouts are laughing, it's very hard to take what you're seeing seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, I know you have some reservations, and everyone should. I mean, with any rookie quarterback, right? You look at CJ Stroud, had a great year last year. This past year, not so great. Yeah. So obviously we need more data points and all of that. But how optimistic are you that this marriage will work? And is it the most optimistic you've been with a quarterback going into year 2 for the Bears in your past 20 years?
Going into year 2, absolutely. I was in the building for the Cody Parkey game, and I walked out of that building thinking the way Mitch played on that final drive and the way he led the team down the field, I really believed he had taken a step that in those moments that we were going to see translate in 19. And that was the team I probably picked to go the furthest. I thought that was a Super Bowl team in 19. Right. I remember the week. It was against New Orleans. What was that, 5-6 weeks into the season, when I saw him just collapse. And I said, I just knew that wasn't the guy. And people were yelling at me for weeks after. I'm like, no, guys, sometimes you just see that game and you go, okay, that's just not him. Listen, there were throws last year I saw him make. There were plays I seen him make with his legs. The things that he might not have done well last year, I think are excusable for a rookie. Also, like, we've gotten to this place now with analyzing these guys where it's all like, we're doing statistical analysis in their rookie years. And I try to tell the younger guys, and you guys are younger than me, but I try to tell the younger guys, go back and study Troy Aikman. Go back even further and study Terry Bradshaw, who was benched like 50 times his rookie year. Go back and study how these quarterbacks used to be handled, because what coaches used to do is throw them out there and pull them right off the field and say, no, now watch for 2 games. And I think Caleb absolutely should have been starting last year. They should have been a better offensive team. But I think they knew very early on in that process last year that this was not working. And this was not going to get the best out of him. And the mistake they made last year, and I will argue this till the cows come home, the mistake they made was promoting Thomas Brown out of that offensive coordinator role after putting him in that role, because any sustained success that we started to see was completely abolished. The second he left that, when I was arguing that, people were saying I was crazy. I said, if your development of Caleb is the thing, keep him in that role and just let them keep growing the thing. As soon as Thomas Brown moved to head coach, the offense fell apart. It's not surprising. The same thing happened with the Jets last year. They fire Robert Saleh. The defense suddenly couldn't play anymore, and the Jets
Who'd have thought?
faded away. Yeah, turns out you keep your coaches in the same place the entire season. But
Right.
this is the thing. I am very optimistic. But the reason I'm optimistic is I just think his pedigree and the things I actually saw from him as a quarterback, the throws down the sideline, the way he moves in the pocket. I don't think he's ever going to be Troy Aikman or Peyton Manning. I don't think he's ever going to be three-step drop, look, and fire. He's going to make plays with his legs. He's going to use those intangibles. And listen, and I'm not somebody who goes wholehearted after a new coach. Even with Ben Johnson in the fall, I was like, we got to stop canonizing this guy. Like, let's see him head coach first. But man, the word out of House Hall is the guy's taking over the organization. And I've never heard that before about a head coach. Matt Nagy didn't come in and take over the organization. Matt Eberflus certainly didn't. That's Ben Johnson's building right now, more than anybody else's. That is Ben Johnson's building. And that, I think, if you're a Bears fan, that is a good thing to hear.
It's what you want. We need a leader to come in there and clean up the mess. So he came in there and left his mark. And we saw that all the way from free agency with him attacking. Let's be real, right? Ryan Poles didn't address offensive line like he should have in the 2 years prior. In comes Ben Johnson, who's known for offenses that have good offensive lines, and boom, addresses offensive line immediately. And then you look at how we addressed our first three picks, I should say, or first 3 out of 4 being on offense in the draft. And you saw that was Ben Johnson written all over it. And then you see how he addresses himself at the podium as well. And you're just like, okay, no, I think we have someone that's really coming in here and saying, no, I'm going to right this ship. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dave.
The first time I can remember, I don't know how far we'd have to go back, where a head coach was hired by this team and seemingly took to the top of the hierarchy from the jump. I don't know how far back we'd have to go. We'd have to go back a long way. I mean, Lovey was never ahead of Jerry Angelo in that hierarchy. Never. I mean, Jerry Angelo was the top of football operations, and I think an underrated one. But I think you have to go back quite a ways to find someone who was the top of the hierarchy, and that's what Ben is right now. And part of that is, as I told those Irish Bears boys back in November when they asked me who's going to be the coach, I said, everybody in the league is telling me about this love affair between Poles and Ben Johnson. Like everyone was, and then Breer comes out a couple days later and says, listen, Ben Johnson wanted the Bears job. The stones were laid. This is the job Ben Johnson wanted a year ago. And Ben Johnson's got the job now, and Ben Johnson doesn't want another job. So if you're a guy like that, and if you're an alpha, if you're a Jim Harbaugh or a Bill Parcells or even now a John Harbaugh, and if you're one of these guys who wants to cook with their own groceries, and that's what Ben Johnson is, and he's got the spot now. And I think it's far more likely that the Bears would have a new general manager in the next 3 years than a new head coach.
Interesting. My question for you is with Ryan Poles, because he loves Ben, how is that? I guess that dynamic works pretty well with Poles. If Ben Johnson is kind of calling these shots, how is that dynamic? How is the dynamic in House Hall where he's the GM? Is it still pretty seems like they're communicating very well? He's okay with that?
Yeah, I've heard it's great. So what I've heard is Poles and Ben are great. There's another guy in the room often where it's less great. I don't want to go down Kevin Warren Boulevard anymore. Yeah. Get the stadium fucking built and get out of the way. That's the way I feel. Wherever you can build the damn thing in Jersey at this point. Just build the damn thing. Pick a spot. Yeah. Because once you decide in Illinois to build a stadium, you got 2 years of bureaucratic shit to sort out then.
Yeah.
I've heard it's great. What I've been told about Ryan Poles is that he has been very much humbled by these last couple of years. And I do believe now there's the contentious argument that I've heard people say is Poles wanted Eberflus fired. George came in and said no. I do not believe that is the case. I do believe Kevin Warren wanted Eberflus fired and wanted to restart the clock. But I'm telling you, Poles and Eberflus were close. I mean, they got very close personally. And I think Eberflus was still making arguments last year that he could run the program. I don't know why the Eberflus program fell apart to the extent that it did early in this season. He didn't have these locker room problems a year earlier. But this year, and I'm talking in the summer, word was starting to trickle out that this thing was falling apart. And again, I tend to be at these horrific games. I was in D.C. last year for the Hail Maryland. And
bless her soul.
Also, my back was out, so I had to limp back to the fucking subway. That's a long one. So, and I was in that building. I remember having arguments with people on the train saying that this won't derail the whole season. Well, it fucking derailed the whole season. I mean,
yeah.
As soon as the pictures came out of the corner basically waving at the crowd as the ball's in the air, I said, well, that's not going to go well. And it felt like that kind of a moment where Eberflus, I think, must have realized in that moment it was kind of over. Like, if these kinds of things are happening to your program, I'm shocked Eberflus got another job, by the way. I mean, from what we've been told, to be hired as a DC as quickly as he was, very surprising to me. But, yeah, I think Poles feels steady right now. But for Poles, there's no more excuses for him, right? If he can't win with he's gutted the thing, he's rebuilt the thing, he's got the coach, he's got the quarterback. If this doesn't work, that's it for him. I mean, he won't get another crack at this. He has not been good enough to get a second crack at this.
Yeah.
So, from what I've been told, they all love what they're seeing right now. But I've heard that, right? I've heard that.
We all have, yeah.
I've heard that many times.
Over and over and over and over again.
You talked briefly about the stadium, and we don't talk about the stadium too often. It's very little. I really want to ask you, you have to choose, putting all your money. Where is this stadium being built? Is it Arlington?
I think it's going. I mean, I know that Ted will kill me if he finds out I said this stuff. The deal was done in Arlington when Ted was the president. It was done. Yeah. All Kevin had to do was come in and just not fuck it up, and he fucked it up. And then he starts flirting with the city. Now, right, to build what they're trying to build on the lakefront is it's not even. I am a Chicago Bears tourist. I come into Chicago. I stay at a hotel. I go to fucking Malnati's and the Billy Goat and the Rossi's and my 7 bars that I love. And then I walk to the building and I love it. I'm not going to argue about traffic patterns. Listen, there's suburban stadiums all around where I live too. They're nightmares. Traffic's going to be there. It's not going anywhere. They're not going to miraculously get rid of traffic at Arlington Heights. But to build what they want to build on the lakefront is so expensive. Like, I don't think people realize how much things cost to build in cities, and the red tape to get through. We're talking about $2.5 billion to build that ballpark on it. So to get that done, to me, always seemed far-fetched. I think they'll end up in Arlington Heights. Now, I don't think they're going to end up there for a while, though, because I just don't. They don't need to break. From when they break ground to when they open is what, 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah. I think Kevin said dirt and ground is 2 years, at least. So
until that gets sorted and gets, I do think they'll end up in Arlington, because what I'll tell you about the league is they are on the Bears. So this is some inside baseball fun stuff. The Commanders did not sell for anywhere near the amount of money the league hoped they would sell for. And one of the reasons that the league is on the Jets to try to get out of the MetLife, which is the most horrific building ever constructed in the world history, is because they are starting to believe that 2 things are keeping franchise values from going up. The Jets and Giants sharing a building and not having real estate to escalate their prices, and the Bears not owning their building. Because the Bears, the belief in the league, Jerry Jones has been yelling about this for years. The belief in the league is the Chicago Bears with a building is $9 billion, right? They get to $9 billion. And if they put on the open market, people think 10 is in play. What they are now in this intermediate, the league wants them to have a building and have one fast. They want the Jets out of MetLife. They want these buildings to go up, because once the value goes through the roof. People thought the Redskins, then Commanders, were $8.5 billion. I forgot what they went for, but it was sizably less. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where the league is right now. There's a lot of pressure on the Bears to get this done. I don't think the McCaskies would even consider selling this team until that is done, because of the escalation in value. So a lot of moving parts around the Bears are hinged upon them getting this thing built. And I just don't know what Kevin Warren is doing. Just make the damn choice. At this point, it's not even worth having the debate anymore. Just pick a spot and build it.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Go ahead, Fig.
No, go
ahead.
I was gonna say, well, first I looked it up. It was $6 billion, so yeah, it was a little bit less for the Commanders, right? I mean, still a lot of money, but a little less. But yeah, also the NFL. I'm pretty sure the NFL has their own stadium pool fund where they basically will pump a certain percentage of money into helping you get it, because they understand, like you said, more revenue for the team, more revenue for the NFL, more revenue for the owners. Like they all want these other teams to have their own stadiums, because they don't even own their stadium and they still owe on it. So it's like, what are we doing?
Real estate is some of the most expensive real estate in the country. So the belief was, man, that's an $8.5 billion franchise with that real estate, and just didn't get those kinds of offers. And I think again, it's because they, what did Carolina went for only like 4, maybe even a little less than 4. That was lower than they expected. And the way you pump these franchises up in value, which is why all of these guys get into the game, right? Woody Johnson bought the Jets for like $125 million. I'm making that number up. And it's worth $5.5 billion now, right? Yeah. So these guys get into the game because they are foolproof investments. There is no greater investment for a billionaire than to buy an NFL franchise. It is not going down. And the league and the owners in the league want to see their franchises go up, which means the top franchises have got to keep escalating in value. And for the Bears, that means they've got to get their own building. And I don't know what's taking so long, but it's very boring. It's become a really boring topic too, because I find myself arguing about commuting and commuter rails, and I'm like, why? I don't want to talk about that. I don't even
taxes, all that stuff. Yeah, it's not fun.
Hey, Jeff. We first of all, if you guys have any questions for Jeff, go ahead and put them in the chat. We have one right now. I want to ask you, and it doesn't have to be too long of an answer or anything. If you don't even have to answer it at all, but there's a question from Drew Black on YouTube. He goes, Jeff, was Poles forced to keep Flus?
No, and I really don't believe he was. I mean, I believe there were 3 voices in that room. I know George wanted to keep Flus. I know that Kevin didn't. But I think Poles gave Flus another year. Now, do I think that was a mistake? Did I think that was a mistake at the time? I was not in that band of people, so I can't pretend I was saying that was a surefire decision. He should definitely be out. I was one of the people who was kind of impressed with how they played the back half of that season and saw some things where I said, you know what? They're a really rough first fucking 6 weeks. Guys getting FBI raids, and I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like, what is going on?
They had FBI raids. I'm going, what is happening? And they looked like a different team down the stretch. So if Flus went in and said, I figured this out, I'm one of those people who says maybe he's improving. And it didn't cost you anything really, because I think you still landed a very good head coach to follow up. Did you? And I'm not a believer that you wasted Caleb's first year. Everything that happened to him in year 1's a learning experience. Everything will make him better, make him stronger. So no, I don't think Poles was forced. I think he was on board with keeping Flus. And I think that's a reason why Poles was very much on the hot seat here coming into this offseason. Keeping Poles was not a sure thing. And if everybody remembers, one of the worst press conference performances I've ever seen was Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren at the end of this season, where Kevin Warren ran that press conference and Ryan Poles looked like he had just been spanked for 30 straight minutes and put in timeout. His eyes weren't there. He was checked out. I remember texting friends and saying, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a general manager this neutered at a press conference, but clearly that's what happened. And he was kind of read the riot act, but I think he went into those rooms saying, I got Ben Johnson on the hook. I'll land him. And they basically told him, you better.
I remember that press conference. It was very, very awkward. And that was obviously before Ben Johnson, before everything started to go right for Chicago. So I want to move forward. We have a couple more questions, and then we want to end it with viewer questions. We already have several in the chat, Jeff, for you. Before we move on to those, I wanted to ask you about DJ Moore. You had a very, very interesting, I think it was volume 2 about DJ Moore.
Just DJ.
What did you say?
It was just DJ Moore. I got to ask.
Right, exactly. And it was great. First of all, go on Sports Mockery, check it out. It's a great, great piece. A lot of really good stuff from Jeff and what he was able to get from around the league. I don't want to spoil it, but Jeff, DJ Moore and his body language was a real thing last year, at least to some fans. I want to know your perspective on DJ Moore, and then also how safe is he? Because the Luther Burden pick, I know is interesting. I just want your thoughts, and also how is he viewed in Hallis Hall right now, especially with the contract extension last year?
So, I mean, overwhelmingly positive view of him in the building right now. However, nobody liked what they saw on the field from him last year. And a lot of that is, when I hear people say there was nothing up, I mean, he's running to the sideline and belittling his rookie quarterback to other players on the sideline. That's just not a good look. And he, when you're paid all that money in an offseason and a rookie quarterback is coming in, if you're going to be a leader in the group, if you're going to be someone people look to, that can't be the way you behave. And it's one of the reasons why, over the summer, I started to tell people, don't be surprised if Rome Odunze becomes the lead target by the end of the year, because Caleb's coming in with the guy. They'll have a natural rapport. And if he doesn't hit it off immediately with DJ Moore, that can go awry. It went awry. Now, they still believe in him. He is going to be a focal part of this offense this year. I like Luther Burden. They like Luther Burden. Luther Burden's got some personality issues he really has to overcome. His Missouri coaches basically told me he was a handful. He was a lot of effort, a lot of work. That's okay. He's a kid. I mean, I remind people sometimes, when you're in your early 20s, you are a fucking idiot. And most of them are just idiots. So he'll get smarter. With this coach believes he can coach him. I think DJ Moore, if he commits to this program, could have an Amon-Ra, St. Brown kind of influence. He can be that much of a matchup nightmare. He's not going to be an over-the-top guy. He's never been that kind of guy. But Ben's going to want the ball out of Caleb's hands quick, and that's what DJ Moore does very, very well. And also, someone had told me, so I don't know if we'll see it, but don't be surprised if DJ Moore's in the backfield quite a bit this season. Don't be surprised if they go to a Debo scenario with him and start using him all throughout the formation. So I'm optimistic for him, but that was the performance last year. That was the one that surprised me the most. I didn't see.
Agree.
I didn't see that kind. And again, you can fall. I live in New York, so Juan Soto's having a real hard time right now with the Mets. And the Met fans not pissed off that he's not hitting. They're not pissed off he's not driving in runs. They're pissed off he's not running to first base. Right? They're pissed off he's hitting the ball off the green monster and left and not legging it out for a double. Fans and other players tend to forgive poor play. They don't forgive poor effort. Last year,
well said.
DJ Moore, I saw a lot of the fire was out of that guy. And when you have a rookie quarterback and you're trying to build something, that is the kind of thing you just can't tolerate from a player. You've just given all this, and there's where the alarms go off. We just gave you all this money, and now you're going to do this? And we've seen that. I go back to Peerless Price, man. Guys get this money to be the number one guy, and they're not ready for it. And I don't think he'll be the number one guy this year, but I think Ben's gone in there and been very hard on him and said, this is what we expect out of you. And if you don't deliver it, don't have any problem moving on.
He's got the talent. So I think having look, last season, I'm sure you know all about this. All we heard in that locker room, in that building, was accountability, right? Yep. There was no accountability. And what we've gotten from Ben Johnson so far, it seems like, you're going to get challenged. Like, we're not letting shit slide, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm hoping, right, that we'll get the best of DJ like we've seen previously. And I think you said it best, checked out. Well, you're not going to be able to check out. No. Also, natural as a human, right? Something new, refreshing comes in. You're excited again. It happens all the time, right? So I'm hoping we get that old DJ Moore a pass and we don't get what we saw last year. Because I agree, Jeff. We were all kind of like, what is this?
And that had never been the knock on him in Carolina, though. The knock on him in Carolina was not that he was chewing out teammates on the sideline. The other thing they added this year, and I've been bullish on this, you know what? You try to check out on a sideline with Joe Thuney, and you're going to find out what it means to have a leader stomp on you, right? Joe Thuney wins. Like, that's all he does. He's come from major winning NFL franchises. He has been brought here for one reason, to not take shit, right?
Love it.
Ben wanted a guy on that line, and in that room especially, where there's some guys he wants to light a fire under. Darnell Wright is a guy he's going to want to light a fire under. I think my offensive line thing was this morning, and one of my scout buddies said to me, I thought he was going to be a superstar. Good player, but he's not been a superstar. And I think there's going to a guy like Joe Thuney is in that room going, no, Darnell, you can be this much better, but you have to do these 10 things every day to be better. A guy like Joe Thuney is going to side check DJ Moore if he's tuning up the quarterback on the sideline. That's why you bring those kinds of guys in. And I think the culture change starts with Ben, but he's bringing in particular kinds of pieces around the roster to be enforcers of that structure, including position coaches. And I've said this, I've had several people say this to me. One of the most important additions has been Antoine Randall L. Antoine Randall L is apparently, and I don't know the guy at all, is apparently like a nut job coach. And DJ Moore will not get away with the behavior last year in a room with Antoine Randall L. And I was told, I think this was in one of my first couple of these looks, that the expectation around the league is Antoine Randall L will be the next coach that goes from position coach to head coach. That he's not a coordinator, he's not an X's and O's guy. He is legitimately just a leader. And Ben getting him to leave Detroit to come to Chicago is a huge get. And I think these rooms are going to be, there's going to be a different behavioral expectation now from a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I feel the same way too. I felt the same way about Al Harris, and he did a great job with the DBs and the Cowboys, right? Kind of not necessarily no names, but bringing out the best. And I feel like that was kind of an issue last year, was not just obviously overall coaching, but when you're looking at positional groups, especially offensive line as well, even though we're missing talent, you were not bringing out the best of these. So any type of talent we can bring in, I know it's the cliche iron sharpens iron, but that's what it is. Getting these people who have done it before, have the right mindset, and bring out the best of these players. Because from a talent standpoint, we're not that far off from being like really competitive, right? Contending, that might be a different story, but to like really be one of those playoff teams, we can do that. That's the problem. That's why we haven't met expectations, because our best guys are not, they're having DJ Moore seasons, right? Yeah. And not getting up to their highest potential. So I'm super, super excited about that.
This is a playoff. My mind, this is a playoff team. And what keeps them from being a championship team is I just don't think they have enough pass rush still. I mean, but you get down to those January games that are so close, and the other team's got the ball in the fourth quarter. Getting to that quarterback is what determines those games. So I think they can get to January tournament football. I just don't think they can win 2 or 3 games against the league's best with the pass rush they have, especially if it's Montez Sweat 2024 and not Montez Sweat 2023.
Yeah.
Big differences.
Are they
still the flaw for me?
I wanted to move to the offensive line because you did release that article today on Sports Mockery, and it was volume 5. Before we go on to that real quick, Are they worried in the building at all about Montez Sweat? What's because we don't really hear a lot about Montez. I'll be honest, like he's super quiet. What is like Ryan Poles and company think of him? Seems like they're putting a lot on his shoulders to kind of bounce back in 2025 since they haven't made too many big additions.
A lot of talk about injuries last year is what you get with Montez Sweat, is that they think a lot of the lack of production that we saw from year to year was injury related. But he's one of those guys who's still going to go out there and play, right? He's still going to go out there and play, and we're still going to judge him the same way we judged him a year when he was healthy. A lot of it is injury related, so they believe in him. But Dennis Allen also knows that he can't rely on Montez Sweat to go out there and get 14, 15 sacks and be the entirety of their pass rush. They are actually very well designed to rush the passer now from the interior, which I love, which I actually quite love, especially in a division with a Jordan Love and with a JJ McCarthy, guys who are not going to tear you apart with their legs on the outside. And Jared Goff. I forgot about Jared Goff. Like they kind of have they have some statues at quarterback in this division now. So an interior pass rush is huge. Expectations are still going to be high for Montez Sweat, but I know they're disappointed that they haven't been able to add a significant player on the other side. But they also, those are hard to come by. Can they get Hendrickson from Cincinnati? I have such a hard time understanding a team like Cincinnati that we all know is so good, right? Last year, they were the most fun team to watch in the league. Their defense fell apart early, got better late. Why are you giving up that piece? Why not make that deal happen? You've got the quarterback and all these weapons. Make the run at it while you've got this now. Why would you kick the can down the road? Yeah. They are the cheap. So we'll see what happens. So I still don't see that trade happening. But an addition of a player like that to me is that changed the roster.
Well, remember with Joe Thuney's extension, they cleared up $8 million in
7.5-ish.
Yeah. So I mean, listen,
cap space. They can do other extensions, kind of manipulate the cap a little bit. How
Sorry, Dave, you cut out for a second. We got you. Yeah, they freed up like $8 million with that extension, which is huge.
My question was, is it something Poles and company might even entertain, or is it more of just like a blog, like just like a dream scenario if Cincinnati is looking to move him?
There's 12, 15 teams eyeing it right now.
Really?
Of
That's the problem. It's like until nobody, these kinds of rumors, nobody believes these things until they really have calls coming from the other team. You know, the Myles Garrett thing. A buddy of mine told me, I said, Myles Garrett going to get traded? And his response was, no, Myles Garrett's not getting traded. Like, nobody believed that for a second, that Myles Garrett doesn't like the direction of the organization. Well, that changed wildly once they threw a couple $100 million this way. Huh?
That's sure. Right. I'll make you stay.
Now those Browns have everything on the right track.
Right.
They have 17 quarterbacks. So they have no and one they're paying $250 million to can't play anymore. So everything's going really hunky-dory there in Browns land.
Yeah.
But though the Bears, I think one of the reasons why you clear that money, if this thing becomes real, you're one of those teams in a position to be able to make that deal. And again, we've seen from polls also, one of the things I like about him is that he's not afraid in season to make a big move. And if this team gets off to a hot start, if this team's 4-1 and they're looking up in October and they're like, we still need a pass rusher, he can start making phone calls because they have enough space there cleared to make those calls. You know, it might be more logical to try to get Hendrickson in mid-October if Joe Burrow gets hurt again. So, you know, you clear enough space when you have a roster like this. And I think this is a good Bears roster that's just a piece or two away.
Interesting. Speaking of pieces, Braxton Jones, your article today that was released on sportsmockery.com, you talked about it. Darnell Wright, you know, he's not a star quite yet. However, one of the biggest question marks going into this offseason was Braxton Jones. From the guys you talked to, you know, they weren't surprised that they left their left tackles alone, but they don't think Jones is ever going to be one of the best players at the position. And one of them called the left tackle is average. So what are your thoughts on him? And then personally, and then secondly, for me personally, what I've heard is they love him in the building, or at least Ben Johnson wants his hands on him to see what they can do with this coaching staff. How is he viewed in Hallis Hall, Braxton Jones?
They did not see a player that they had to replace, right? So when they did roster evaluations and they came in, they did not look at Braxton Jones and say, we need a better left tackle right now. That might change midway through this season. But they looked at a player, they looked at that offensive line, and they said, the three in the middle have to be replaced immediately, and they set out to do that. There's a belief, and I share this belief, that if you get him the proper left guard next to him who's there and playing, I like the way Tevin plays. He was never on the field. And you got to be on the field. So the idea is Tooney will make Braxton better. The idea also is if this middle of the offensive line plays well and Darnell starts to play up to his potential, you can survive a mediocre or above, let's call him above average left tackle. If you have to help on the left, you're fine. The problem is when you have to help at left tackle, center, right guard, like when you have to help all throughout the line, it's no viable way to do that. So they were very happy to go into this season with Braxton Jones if they were able to rebuild the interior, and they were able to do that. So he reminds me an awful lot of Charles Leno. It's very interesting how they got the same player almost. And Charles Leno went off and had a decent career in Washington. They said the same things about Charles Leno in Washington that they were saying in Chicago. Well, he's a good player. He's not a great player.
Yeah.
Your roster's not going to have great players everywhere. And this offensive line right now should be I asked these guys for grades today, and I think the lowest grade was a B that could be an A-. It was B+, was B+. That's where they see this offensive line. If they gel, it'll be even better. So I think Braxton has every opportunity this year to earn that role for 5 more years to come. That's the hope in the building. That's what they want to see happen. The question is, is the talent there?
That's great to hear because that's what we want, right? I mean, I know he's on a contract year, but we've talked about it, Dave. It's that he's not bad enough to get replaced. He just isn't, right? He's got his flaws, but he's not bad enough to get replaced. And the offensive line works as a unit. The problem is we had like 2 decent guys on the line and 3 horrible guys on the line or injured, and therefore the flaws of the 2 get shown more often because they have to carry more of the weight. And your goal is you're hoping that with this new interior line of Dahlman, Jackson, and Tooney, that now some of those flaws won't peek his head as much because you'll have help from the guards, right? So
Yeah, I think the offensive line, the revamp they've done, it's quite remarkable, especially with Thuney, Jonah Jackson. There's a question here from one of our viewers about him as well. I want to start with, before we get you out of here, Jeff, is a couple of our viewer questions. This one is regarding DeAndre Swift. That guy 44 on YouTube says, what do they think of Swift, I presume, inside the building at Hallis Hall?
Replaceable. I mean, I think they were interested in these backs in the draft. I don't think they were interested to the extent that everyone wants to make them out to have been interested. Like, I don't think they went into this draft saying we need 6 backs, right? I think they went and got a guy in the 7th round. Ben's belief system is if the offensive line works, we'll get the production we need out of the backs. Now, he just had 2 special guys in Detroit, right? He didn't start with those 2 guys, though. So let him find out. I think DeAndre Swift is a completely usable back. Throw him the ball in the backfield, hand him the ball 10, 12 times a game. I think Roschon Johnson has value as a running back. One of my buddies made a really good comment, though, which is if your goal is to have Roschon Johnson get you the hard yards, he can't be as injury prone as he is, because it just those ideas don't coincide, right? You can't be getting the David Montgomery yards in an offense and be hurt every 3 weeks. So I think you're going to see him mix and match backs, and for everybody who made this argument in the offseason, look at what Saquon Barkley did for the Eagles. Okay, but the other team in the Super Bowl was playing guys that got off the street in October. So, the Chiefs were pulling Kareem Hunt out of a bar room in, mid-October. So this notion that you need a star running back, it's functionally untrue. The Bears' offensive line works. These backs will be just fine. Is there a star among them? Absolutely not. But we're not suddenly in a new era of football where you need star running backs because Saquon Barkley happens to be a brilliant running back running behind the best offensive line in the conference. So
that helps.
To me, I think DeAndre Swift will be just – if this offensive line works, you'll see a productive DeAndre Swift. You'll see a productive Roschon Johnson. The kid from Rutgers, are you, baby? Rutgers will be productive. I mean, I'm not worried about – I've never been worried about running back rooms. You can always add more talent. And if this team were a running back away from winning the Super Bowl, that's very different. That's clearly not where they are in the cycle.
I totally agree. Interesting. Yeah, we had a question about Roschon Johnson. You kind of gave your answer there. Fick, do you want to go through some of these questions, pull them up, and I'll let you kind of.
Yeah, here's a good one.
A lot of good ones.
How do they feel about Jonah Jackson? So obviously down year last year with the Rams. He's played center, I believe, when he's truly a guard. Had his best years with Ben Johnson in Detroit the year before that, or the years before that. So do you have a feel on how they feel about that trade? Obviously, they made the trade, so the people in the building have to like him somewhat. But what's your understanding of that?
Jonah Jackson, whenever Bill Parcells would show up at a new job, he'd go get the same 6 players. Like Aaron Glenn suddenly shows up. And then, Teddy Bruschi's playing at 45 years old. These coaches bring these guys in to just set tone sometimes. Yeah. And Jonah Jackson is one of those guys that Ben sees as an enforcer type, right? He knows my system. He knows how I want to run an offensive line room. He knows what I expect out of my guys. You put that – now, he, again, not a star by any means at right guard. Not a position you need a star at either. But a guy who is a good cog in a good wheel. And I think Jonah Jackson will have a very good year. He's not a long-term answer, but he's a guy to plug and play right now and bring that culture together, because year one for Ben is going to be so much about instilling a new way of approaching the game. So he's got to add guys who understand that approach and will bring it to practice and bring it to game day. And that's why Jonah Jackson's here.
And that reminds me of Tibbs and Taj Gibson. Wherever Tibbs went in the NBA, Taj was there. So yeah, they bring in their guys that they feel that's good, especially if you're trying to get someone to set the tone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the culture we're trying to build. You got to get someone in here to do that. And I'm all here for that. Okay, we got a couple more in here. Let me pull them up real quick. Okay, let's see here. This is a good one from Thomas Whitty, who's an OG of the podcast and Patreon. So shout out to you, Thomas. But he said, favorite player from the Bears, 2010s to present.
Jesus. 2010s to present. I'm trying to. When did Tillman retire? So I'm going to call Tillman.
Okay.
I'll say Tillman is more
I think he retired like early 2010s, right? I'm pretty sure.
We won't count him. God, it's a really good question.
We had a lot of bad teams through that time, so it's a little hard too. So
I mean, Jay Cutler probably.
Okay, Cuddy.
I mean, nothing makes me happier than to visit Chicago and say something positive about Jay Cutler in a bar and just get yelled at by everyone around me for like hours. There are other players. There's other players I like from that period, like Devin and Roma should do.
Roma should love it. Number 19, that was great.
Yeah, all of a sudden, you'd have a game like the Minnesota game where he
go crazy.
A pass in overtime. I was at that game too. I'm trying to think of a good defensive player in that period who was like really exciting, but like
was Peppers. Peppers is that when we traded for him? That was 2010s, right?
Yeah. So Lovey's still there in 2010, 2011, 2012 is Trestman, right? So
12 is Trestman, where the defense was horrible, but the offense was phenomenal.
The Mel Tucker years.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Cutler is probably my favorite player from that period, but I can't think of.
It's fine. We didn't have, like I said, those were really bad years. That was a bad 15 years. That decade was not great. Really? And speaking of it, it'll lead to this other question here.
Yeah.
What was more, and this is from Brennan on YouTube. Thank you for the question here. Which was a more dysfunctional season? 2014 with Trestman, which we heard reports about all that horrible, right? Or 2024, which was last year.
I've had many conversations with Adam Johns about this. Because we started making 2014 references last year very early to each other. So 2014, when Cromer leaks the story to the press, admits to everybody that he leaked stories about Cutler to the press, and Trestman still doesn't fire him for doing that. To me, and then Trestman benching Cutler late in that season, another game I was at, when Jimmy Clausen is named the starting quarterback. I was in Soldier Field, and I shit you not, fans were laughing at the Bears. They were laughing at them from their seats. I've never seen a more apathetic group in a stadium in my life. I think 2014 is the gold standard in terms of that. 2024 is getting worse, though, as we get more distance from it. Because every story you hear is worse. Every story you hear, it just gets worse. Like, I mean, I knew it was dysfunctional, but I didn't know to the extent that the players were like furious with all this. Like, I'm amazed it didn't come out during the season. You know, I know Brisker is like dropping his tweet hints all the time.
Of course, that's Brisker.
I'm amazed they didn't go to the press. Like, I'm amazed they didn't go to the press and just start saying, we are in this real situation here. We need to get out of this. But it's getting worse. But 14 was happening. The stories about Trestman doing his team meetings from the back of the room. I mean, there was things coming out about that season that were fucking insane.
I feel like it might be recency bias, but I feel like I didn't hear about those till like players were kind of more out of their career and they talked more about it. But I feel like, and this, I could just be recency bias because that's 11 years ago. But I feel like the stories of last year were like immediate. It's like, oh, he got fired here. Let's spill the tea on everything that's going on. But that could have been the case back then. I was also like 2014. So
2014 was the only column I'd ever written where I said, you have to fire this guy. And it was for no other reason than to hold your head up as an organization and pretend you're serious about this. Well, you need to get rid of this guy. And the fact that they kept him to the end of the season to me was a wild decision because it sent a message into that locker room that when Aaron Cromer, again, the Cromer going to the press on Cutler is one of the most deceitful things I've seen from an organization. And to not fire that guy for doing it was inexcusable. But it's a good comparison. It's a 30 for 30 document.
Oh, for sure.
I want to know, because that ESPN article that was released, was it last week now? Whenever it was, because we've already heard, I think we actually heard a couple months back that Shane Waldron actually, I guess, didn't really watch film or tell Caleb what to do in regards to what he was looking for. First of all, I guess it is true, but like, did you hear that? And how does that happen as far as an offensive coordinator?
I certainly didn't hear it during the season. All I had heard during the season was that Waldron was checked out in the job, right? That was what everybody was saying. And it was very obvious when Thomas Brown took over that things fundamentally, the offense changed. overnight, that offense was run differently. It was executing. There was a rhythm to it. People were taking to Thomas Brown's coaching. So the Waldron thing is, to me, Shane Waldron was not some outside the box hire. He was the conservative choice. Like, he was a guy who would run offenses and run productive offenses, and Pete Carroll spoke super highly of him, and they called Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's like, this guy's great. I don't know what happened to Shane Waldron in the spring of 2024, but it wasn't good, whatever it was. And so, nobody had heard to the extent that we're now hearing how checked out he was. I mean, your offensive coordinator, your only job with a rookie quarterback is to be, I've heard some ex-players, nobody tells you what film to watch. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, the offensive coordinator should be in that film room with the rookie quarterback for the first 2 months, literally pointing out what's happening on the screen. These are children. These are 22-year-olds. Like, the idea that you're going to just put Caleb in there and go, yeah, figure it out. It's mind-blowing to me. But, now when you look back at how that offense looked for the first couple months of the season, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense that he was checked out of these meetings and there was no accountability. There was no accountability on the field, play to play. So no, I hadn't heard that. And I don't know anybody who had heard that, but now it's all coming out.
Now it's mainstream.
25 is the Waldron leak system. Everybody's telling stories now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Fick,
it was a shitty year.
We got one or two good questions to finish, and we'll get Jeff out of here.
Yep.
I feel like you kind of answered this one, but we'll go ahead and do it again. From Aiden here on YouTube said, Jeff, how does the building feel about Ben's ability to get the best out of and handle the players? You mentioned Luther Burden being seen as having to be coddled and Ben believing he can handle it.
So I'll give you Luther Burden's a good example. So Luther Burden, one of my buddies is a scout. I've mentioned him before, NFC team, said, listen, the talent is unbelievable. And he doesn't think there's a team in the league that doubts the talent. What people do doubt is the person. And that's not uncommon. When, on draft, you doubt that this person is going to be able to get a bunch of money, assimilate to this culture, take care of themselves without having someone on their back all the time, telling them what to do, how to live, how to exist. But Ben was pounding the table for him. And Ben believes that he can coach the talent. Now, I will say this. Jameson Williams is not exactly the best example of, and I believe Jameson Williams and Luther Burden went to the same high school.
They did.
Jameson Williams is not exactly a great example of Ben coaching a guy out of problematic behavior. You don't put that on Ben, but it's an example of a guy who also had red flags. Those red flags are still waving. I'd like to see that Ben can do it, but this is the thing. He's the guy choosing these players. We talked about this earlier. These players are not being chosen by Ryan Poles. They're being chosen. Ryan Poles is in the room. He's consulting. Luther is the guy that Ben wanted. Ben wants to use, and Ben wants to use him immediately. Like, he doesn't want to develop him for 3 years and start playing him. Ben wants him playing and producing in September. But I think there's a lot of coaching that has to happen over the next 3 months for that to be a reality. And that's also going to start with, he's got to get on the field for these OTAs. He's got to get over these injury issues. Again, I don't worry about those till August, but Ben wants to coach this guy up and he wants him involved. And I think it'll be a nice test to see if Ben can pull that off.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And then the final one here, I think this is a good one to end on. We have that guy 44 on YouTube said, how much of the vibe is different after Caleb's rookie year compared to Fields' rookie year? So basically comparing this second year with this regime versus the second year with Fields. Because there was a lot of positive momentum going into Fields' second year. There was. We were really excited about that. We saw some strides in that back half. So once he kind of took over the reps.
What feels different about the team right now is that there is a culture being built by Ben Johnson, right? There is and the people I talk to that are in the building itself say it is far more regimented and tougher to do every job in the building, not just football jobs. To come in and be a secretary or an administrator or to be someone's assistant has a different feel than it did under the last coaching staff or the coaching staffs. It's not a hunky-dory building right now, right? It's a building that is being run like a football team. It's being run almost militarily. He wants everyone to reflect a certain kind of attitude. And I think it was important. If you remember when he first got introduced, he addressed all those like staffers. And he was basically like, let's go win. He views the whole project as the whole building. And so, a friend of mine is a low-level administrator in the building, says it's different. Like, we feel different when we walk in. We make sure our shirts are tucked in. We make sure we look good. We make sure we're like, there's all that. And before Ben came and Kevin Warren was sort of in charge of that certainly wasn't happening. So there is a different mood. I waded into the Fields debate a whole bunch of times. I see Fields as a very usable player in this league. I don't see him as a star starting quarterback, but I think Fields should be in this league, even as a backup. He should be in this league for 15 years. Like, that guy can play the position. Can he play it as a star at the highest level? I don't think he can. But, and there was a feeling in that regard coming out of his rookie year. Once you moved on from that group, though, man, it's just the mood around the player changes when the guys who draft him are gone. Like when you eliminate those two men, and now all of a sudden a new group's coming in and saying, well, we'll wait and see. Let us look at him. Let us see how he does. Let us see how he is. Well, that wasn't going to happen with Pace and Nagy. They were committed to the guy. And so just the attitude around the season changes. It takes on a more passive feeling. Right now with this guy, it is not passive. Ben Johnson is not saying we want to see Caleb grow. He's going to expect Caleb to produce immediately when this season starts. That's why he's coaching him hard now. This is not a league anymore, man, where it should take your coach and your quarterback 3 years. You don't have that kind of time. Mm-hmm. This game should be productive in September. If these are the right guys, we're going to see it quickly. So the mood is very different, not necessarily because of Fields, but because of Ben Johnson.
Love it.
I love it, Jeff. Well, we'll end it there. We've been going almost over an hour. So, Jeff, first of all, thank you for hopping on. We appreciate it. Check out Jeff's work at sportsmockery.com. Follow him on Twitter, DaBearsBlog, if you're not already. Jeff, anything else before we get you out of here, man?
Hey, man, I'm a teammate now. You call me in. You call me out of the bullpen.
I know. A little colleague.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome. Hey, Jeff, thank you. Have a great night, man.
Thanks.
All right. Again, DaBearsBlog, Jeff, part of the Sports Mockery family now. Again, great work already. I think he's already been making an impact on the site. Really, really good. Just inside info at Hallis Hall in regards to what he's able to get for us. So again, follow him. Hope you enjoyed it. And Vic, anything else before we go? I know we have our shout out.
Real quick. We do have shouts. I do want to just give our quick promo run real quick. We do have merch. You can go to our store, the BFRstore.com, where we have new hoodies, shirts, all the goodies. Feel free to check it out. We appreciate your support on that. And then also we have our Patreon, the BFR Den on Patreon, where we have monthly exclusives. We have our giveaways. We have our private Zoom calls, mailbag episodes. We will be having our Zoom call here coming up soon. I'll drop the schedule for you Patreon members. And then, of course, I have to give a shout out to our Patreon members. Saw some in the chat. I know Michael Barry was drinking in Chicago. I think he's in the loop right now watching the show. Appreciate that. And I know Thomas had a question on here. So shout out to Thomas, Michael, Phil as well, Gage, and then Michael from across the pond. And then for our rookie Grizzly members, got to give a shout out to Alex, Brian, Chris, Jason, and Eston. Much love to y'all. So appreciate all the support. And then speaking of support, we didn't get our mid-read in here, which is totally fine, but I know you guys were in here giving your shout outs like you always do. So we do have Thomas Whitting here with the hashtag OG Patreon member as well. Nice to see Caleb handing it off to Mungai, which is awesome to see. Michael as well. Hashtag OG. You're damn right. Chicago Bears about to show them better than they can call them. Love that. Cody on YouTube with the hashtag OG Bear Down FGB. And then we got Caleb in here as well. Love the first name. Hashtag OG. Did you guys see Burden playing a big part in this offense this year? I think Jeff nailed it perfectly. We drafted him that high for a reason. So I think that is the attention. And then one last one here. Plastic Rockets. Hashtag OG. Shout out to Papa Dave. Yep. Shout out to Papa Dave. And then congrats and shout out to the Knicks who are playing as we speak right now. Absolutely. So
I know Ficky's probably got that game on the right to his side, right on the side of your desk. We'll get you out of here.
Yes, it is there. But yeah, shout out to all of y'all. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's a great episode having him on. But
if you can, again, follow Jeff. Check out all the work on Sports Market. Also, my articles are over there. Follow Ficky, of course, and the pod on TikTok, which is growing. We saw a lot of growth on there. It's the BFR_pod. If you can on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe. Apple, Spotify, you guys are doing your thing over there as well. So we appreciate it. We'll be back next week with our final episode of the month. Again, the support's been unreal. Road to 10K before the season. 10K subscribers is well over 8,000 subs already. So appreciate the support. Ficky, anything else before we get out of here?
Nah, I ain't got nothing.
Go Knicks.
Great. Yeah, go Knicks, man. I need it.
All right. Well, appreciate y'all. We'll be back next week. Enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend. Be safe and bear down.
Peace.